never split the party. It's a popular saying, and for good reason. First, splitting the party divides its strength, making each group weaker and more vulnerable. This is a huge problem if you're playing in adventures that are built around combat encounters, and even more so if those encounters have all been balanced to leave the full group poised on the razor's edge of total destruction. This is even more problematic if the adventure has been designed as a linear experience, in which the players have to do A, and then B, and then C, all the way down to the end of the line. If you're starting at A, splitting up can't change the fact that B is going to happen next. It will just leave whatever group went to B too weak to deal with it. Now, when you're playing adventures like this, splitting up is both pointless and dangerous. Nothing good can come from it. The other thing is, it can make things tough for the game master, who now needs to keep tabs on two separate tracks of continuity, while also making sure to juggle spotlight time between the groups. So this is simple. Don't split the party. But once you get a little more experience under your belts, things get more complicated. Which is why I say that you should always split the party. Oh, hey there. I just can't stop reading this book. It's called So You Want to Be a Game Master, and it was written by a version of me from the future who traveled back in time to escape the apocalypse. I need to make sure I'm familiar enough with it that I can pretend to have written it now that my temporal doppelganger has journeyed back to the year 2029 in an effort to avert our imminent doom. It's really good. You should check it out. Now, where were we? Oh, right, splitting the party. I said that you should always split the party. But it's more like you should frequently split the party, or maybe it will often make sense to split the party, so you'll want to keep it in mind as a viable option. But those both exceeded the character limit for YouTube video titles, so you know what? You should always split the party. Let's start with the players. If you're in hostile territory, yeah, splitting the party is probably a bad idea. But once your adventures leave the dungeon, there are going to be lots and lots of times when you're not operating in hostile territory and can gain huge benefits from multiplying your active fronts. Think of it in terms of action economy. If you all stick together, you'll be stuck doing one thing at a time. If you split up, on the other hand, you can often be doing 2 or 3 or 5 things at the same time, stealing a march on your opposition or just moving quicker towards your own goals. Being able to pursue multiple leads at the same time in a mystery scenario, for example, particularly if you're trying to solve the case before the serial killer can strike again, is a great look at how this can work in practice. Now, this can also make it easier for different characters to pursue actions that play to their unique strengths, making it less likely for a player to get stuck in passive mode, watching other players do everything important. Similarly, when 2 actions of the same type need to happen at the same time, it's a great opportunity for someone who's second best at something to get a chance to showcase their skills, instead of just watching the PC with the best modifier make every check in the campaign. Splitting up can also be good for personal scenes. It's a little hard to woo your lady love with 4 wingmen/women/NBs hovering over your shoulder, after all. Now, on the GM side of the screen, I love it when the PCs split up. Not out of malevolent glee. Well, maybe a little bit. But once you know what you're doing, running the game for a split party is GMing on easy mode. The trick is that when the whole group is together, you have limited control over pacing. You can end a scene and frame a new one, but that's about it. As soon as the PCs split up, though, you can suddenly cut in the middle of a scene. Now, start with Group A, cut away in the middle of their scene, jump to Group B, and then later jump back to finish Group A's scene. It takes a little extra juggling to keep track of the continuity between the two groups, but there are a ton of ways that you can use this new power. For example, you can cut on the choice. A role-playing game is ultimately a conversation of meaningful choices. When the players have a big, important choice to make, you can put a spotlight on that choice and make them really think about the consequences of that choice by cutting to the other group and giving them time to think about it. You can also cut on a new bang. Bangs are the big, explosive moments that define the agenda of a scene and force the PCs to start making meaningful choices. Bangs may also arrive in the middle of a scene, radically changing its direction, presenting a dilemma, and making a perfect opportunity to cut away. For example, a Black Ops commando unit crashes through the window, revealing that the whole operation was a setup. Cut. Or Susie announces that she's pregnant. Cut. Or wolves begin howling in the distance on the night of a full moon. Cut. Now, there are also practical cuts. For example, you can cut on the roll of the dice. This leaves the outcome in suspense, but it also has the practical effect of eliminating the mechanical pause while the dice are rolled and modifiers are added. The players are doing all of that work while something exciting is happening to the other group, and when that group gets to their own action check, bam! You cut back to the first group, collect the result, and instantly move forward with the action. Now, in the same way, you can cut when a player is simply preoccupied. This is another practical cut, but at any point where a player needs to look up a rule, or perform a complex calculation, or read through a handout, you can eliminate the dead air at the table by swapping over to the other group. Finally, you can cut when you're not needed. Are the PCs in Group A discussing their options or reviewing their notes? Cut to Group B. I love this cut because the players in Group A are still role-playing even while I'm doing stuff in Group B. Because you're doubling up this time, literally everyone at the table is getting to play more than they normally would. Splitting the party actually increases spotlight time. It's like you're stealing fire from the gods. Now, you may have noticed that a lot of these cuts between split groups create cliffhangers. The players want to know what will happen next, but you're denying that to them. You're making them wait for it. This is great, because if I could give one piece of advice to game masters about pacing in RPGs, it would be do a cliffhanger every single time the opportunity presents itself. It's virtually impossible to have too many cliffhangers. I've done a previous video, actually, which I'll link to in the font of all knowledge, looking at how you can set up cliffhangers at the end of a session. But another awesome thing about splitting the party is that you can create micro cliffhangers throughout the entire session. The trick to pulling this off, though, is that everyone wants to know what will happen next. That includes you as the game master. You'll be just as eager and excited as your players, so it will be really tempting to just, keep playing and find out the answer. But this is why you're sitting in the big seat. You've got to recognize that desire and then resist it, so that everyone, including you, can enjoy the game even more. Okay, here's one last tip for splitting up the party. If the PCs split up and get into 2 fights simultaneously, make a single initiative list, and then just swap between the fights whenever the initiative order tells you to. Running 2 combats at the same time is often seen as the worst case scenario for a split party. But the structure of the initiative list can actually act like training wheels and make it the easiest scenario to run in actual practice. If you're trying to get a feel for what running simultaneous scenes should feel like, cutting between groups, balancing spotlight time, and all the rest of it, then running simultaneous combat can be a great way to do it. This video has been adapted from one of the extra credit chapters in So You Want to Be a Game Master. While the first half of the book breaks down what you prep and how to run dungeons, mysteries, heists, urban crawls, faction-based intrigue, and many other scenarios, the extra credit in the back of the book covers a wide variety of topics useful for any game. Creating your campaign, finding new players, quick and dirty world building, running combat, and, of course, splitting the party. If you'd like to learn even more advanced techniques for splitting the party, flip to page 525 in your copy of So You Want to Be a Game Master, where we'll talk about crossovers, balancing the spotlight, and more. Thanks to Clay Luther for recommending the topic for this video. If there's a topic you'd love to see me tackle, please leave a comment below, and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the video when I make it. Good gaming. I'm Justin Alexander, and I'll see you at the table.